athletes, I'm Haley Herdman, former D1 basketball player, mental health therapist, and mental performance coach for athletes.
And I'm Naomi Im, also former D1 basketball player, athlete mentor, and mental health advocate.
And we are the hosts of Mental Training Room. This is the space where athletes get real about the mental side of sport.
Whether you're on the court, field, or just figuring it all out, we've been there.
And we're bringing you the conversations we wish we had as athletes in hopes to help you become mentally elite.
Let's train the mind like we train the body. Welcome to the Mental Training Room.
We are back in the Mental Training Room, and today our guest is Katy Temple. Katy is an Emmy Award-winning sports broadcaster with over 25 years of success in the media. She now owns Katy Temple Media Coaching and works with executives, founders, and professional athletes to help them feel confident, competent, and in control on camera, on stage, and in person. All right. Welcome to the Mental Training Room, Katy. I'm so excited to have you here. It's been years since we talked last.
Yes.
I think the last time you saw me in person, I was maybe like 5 years old or something like that.
And just as cute as you are now. I'm happy to be on here and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You're
Well, I'm
welcome.
so excited for our conversation today. Katy is a media coach, which I feel like I know what that means, but probably not to the extent that you could share with us. So before we even get into the conversation today, can you tell us a little bit about what media coaching is and what media training actually entails?
Yep, absolutely. So the thing about media training is, and media coaching is as advertised, which is helping clients, in this case, athletes or teams, prepare for media interviews. The idea is that they can learn how the media works, the ins and outs of the media, and then coaching, meaning how I coach them to show up as the best version of themselves, whether it's being authentic, being a good storyteller, managing kind of gotcha questions, and making sure that they're showing up for a lot of reasons with professionally and confidently and authentically.
Yes. And probably, I mean, you obviously know the business more than I do, but I would assume that especially for athletes and like younger athletes now, this media training, media coaching has probably never been more important than it is in the age of NIL. With like the changing media landscape for these athletes, especially the younger athletes who, it might be fun to post a TikTok or it might be fun to kind of like have a social media present. But then when it gets a little bit more serious, when it's from the news outlets, when it's from reporters wanting to come to their high school practices or even college practices to kind of interview them, do stories on them, the landscape is changing. So why do you think that media training now for athletes, especially younger athletes, is important?
You want to think about the big picture because you and I were talking before, and when you are on video, which is one of the reasons a lot of my clients get nervous is because they think I'm on video, it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
And so what you want to remember is that it's never going to go away. And so we all make mistakes. We're all human. This is live. Life is live. And the reason that we want to be prepared for the media is because these are videos that won't go away. And I think we've seen enough of people where maybe major league athletes, maybe major league baseball players or football players, where you've seen that there's been a tweet caught up years and years ago that they had to defend later, or, they were just being silly in their younger self. And so it's important to remember, number one, how you show up, because it's going to be remembered forever. And there's a variety of reasons. Number one, pride and how you show up to represent yourself and your family. Number two, recruiting. Everybody's going to be looking at how you're communicating. Number three, if you're talking, Haley, about the NIL or college, let's talk about branding. And it goes into the pros also, where branding is important. How you show up, how you speak, how you talk, how you tell stories, your eye contact, your body language, your enthusiasm, your energy. And so that's why it's important now. And I always say to my clients, ask yourself 3 times, are you sure that you want to send this? Ask yourself 3 times, are you sure that you want to send this? And I think now young athletes are a lot more savvy. It is something that you want to think about, though. Is it going to be okay if it comes up 10 or 15 years later?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially if we're talking about the young athletes, like if we're going back to like the brain development part of it, they don't have that like fully developed frontal lobe to be able to be on their side in this case of like, okay, yes, I'm going to think about it. I'm not going to be impulsive. So I think that's the biggest thing that, where my mind kind of goes to in the media training and media coaching side of it is making sure that these kids are aware of that digital footprint, whatever it might be. And like you said, am I okay with this coming back up in 10 to 15 years? And I think that that might be hard for young athletes to kind of even grasp that concept in a sense.
So great point. So I'm going to ask you, what
Yeah.
would you say to them if they say you and I were working together and we
Yeah.
had an athlete and we were trying to help them on their coaching
Mhm.
and their Instagram or their TikTok or whatever. And there was saying, we want to post this or we want to post this. And I was saying, okay, are you going to be okay with that years later? And then there is the psychology part, which is your expertise. So how would you go about having that conversation?
I think I would point athletes to a big thing of mental training is being connected and being aware of kind of like the physiological sensations in your body. So, like where you feel emotions in your body, I would want them to be aware of like, okay, what does it feel like when I'm doing something I'm proud of versus doing something I might not be too proud of, or maybe I'm not sure about. And maybe I know for me, it's like I feel this kind of like empty feeling in my chest in a way. And so if I were to have that before maybe posting something or saying something to a reporter, then I would probably want to be like, that's a sign that maybe I shouldn't do this right now, or I should take like 2 to 3 days to kind of think about it. And then if I have a change of heart, the feeling kind of changes, if I can consult about it with my parents or whoever, then maybe I would go about posting it. But I think that would be my answer of like being able to connect with your body in the sense of like, okay, usually your body's telling us when we're doing something right versus when we're doing something wrong. And being able to connect with that feeling, if that makes
Great
sense.
instinct. And so
Yeah.
that's a great instinct. And the other thing is it really that worth it? Is it that
Right.
worth it? Because as you know, as an athlete
Yeah.
and your clients, I mean, sports are they're emotional. And you hear
Mhm.
people all the time say, they caught me, it, we had a bad game. It was emotional. And ideally, as you continue to grow and your brain does continue to develop, if your goal is to show up as the best version of yourself, the most professional version of yourself, then that goes with thinking twice and asking
Right.
yourself, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? To your point, am
Yeah.
I going to look back later and want to vomit because I
Right.
couldn't help myself, but say
Yeah.
that thing or type that thing?
Yeah. And with that, it's the reason why I feel like it's so important is because this is how a lot of athletes are getting recruited nowadays is their social media present because it will then bring money to the schools. So you said that you work a lot with your clients on kind of building their brand. I remember I went to this kind of like quarterback camp for high schoolers. It's called Elite 11. It was earlier this year or it was in the summertime. And they had Meta come in and kind of explain that whole thing to them of like, this is how you build your brand. This is what coaches are looking for. This is what brands are looking for. So, in that aspect, in that world of things, what do you preach to athletes when they start to build a brand? Like, what are some of the things that you encourage them to focus on?
How do you want to show up? This is
Mhm.
about impressions and you controlling the narrative as much as you can.
Yeah.
How do you want to show up? How do you want to represent yourself? And who's your audience? And so
Mm.
really you got to put the ball in their court because
Yes.
it really is about them. So how do you want to show up? How do you want to represent yourself? Who's your audience and how do you want to connect with them, take their pain points away, entertain them, whatever that is? You let the athlete talk about how they want to show up and then you help them get there. Then I help them get there because a lot of it is words, certain vocabulary. We do this exercise, which are give me some examples of how you describe yourself, how you want to come across, and then we can match the verbiage, the storytelling, and the delivery with that.
I love that. I like how it's sounds like it at least starts from a point too of being very authentic and athlete centered of like, okay, you're giving them the autonomy and allowing them to focus on what it is they want to portray rather than trying to like make them fit into a box maybe they don't fit into. And I think that's what's been super cool in the athlete world, at least with the social media presence growing, is they are able to focus on things outside of their sport. And it kind of gives the audience a fun way to connect with them beyond the sport.
Mhm.
Which is what I know I've loved. I'm not a huge I don't watch the NBA a lot, but the players that I do connect with are the ones that I feel like are the ones that are building their brand off of the court and something that like I agree with or I value. So then I'm like, okay, I'm supporting them, I'm supporting their team. So that's been a really fun part of this expansion in the social media world for athletes at least.
And I think they feel the same way, right? They don't have to just go to the media that when I was covering sports, there weren't a lot of outlets. So there were media days and they would come tell us the stories and we would deliver the stories, and that still happens. But now they don't have to do anything they don't want to do. They want to break a
Mhm.
story about them. They can go on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok and do whatever they want. And if they want to show everybody that they love to garden on the weekends or they love hanging out with their kids, they get to do whatever they want. And that is where the authenticity comes in. And to your point, now they're gaining a bigger following, that it could be people that either are like you who love sports, but maybe you don't watch a league, or people that don't love sports at all. And so now they've got a bigger audience. And that, number one, can be simply entertaining. It can be just a place to communicate and connect. And the other thing, it can be a building block for financial gain, right? Depending on how long they're in the league, whether it's a product that they're selling or a service. The more people that like you and know who you are, the more people are going to listen. And generally speaking, moms are the ones that have the purchasing power in the homes. That's
Yeah.
generally speaking. So it's nice when you can kind of touch a variety audience with all different backgrounds.
Absolutely. And speaking of moms, another thing I wanted to ask you was, and going back to that Elite 11 camp that I just mentioned, because this was something that stuck out to me very much from that experience. I was able to shadow a very well known sports psychologist for athletes, and he did a parent talk with the parents of the players that were at that camp. And it was an opportunity for the parents to kind of ask him questions about the psychological part of the game, of the mental game. And all of their questions were centered around social media. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting because they were confused. They didn't know how to really, because these athletes are kids. They're all minors. They're under 18. Some of them are committed, some of them aren't, but they were all in high school. So a typical high schooler might be monitored on social media. They might not be allowed to have social media. But in this situation, the parents, they can do that, but it might be hurting them, might be hurting their kid or their family more than it would be helping because they're not able to kind of have like that financial outlet that social media would bring them. So a lot of their questions were around like, how can I help support my child through like maybe the cyberbullying or the comments that they might be getting on social media, but still allow them to have this platform. So I kind of wanted to bring that up and get your perspective on that and just see like what might your advice be to parents in that situation or even these young athletes who are facing this sort of cyberbullying or hate comments as they try to build their brand and make their presence known on social media.
Well, first of all, tell me what the doctor said. I'd be curious to hear what he said.
So he said, in a sense, kind of just take it away from them or put a boundary and just kind of shut it down. Didn't necessarily agree with that because I don't think that that's the day and age that we're in, that you can just take social media away from these kids, especially ones who are NFL bound.
I think there's a couple things there's a couple layers to this. Number one, you want to your point, you had such a great point earlier about the reality of when a brain's not fully developed, the brain is not fully developed. I mean, full stop. So I think, and that's one of the big dangers of social media, which we all know, and we all know that it's dangerous. And it's got to start with the parents, is what I say. So you want to make sure that you have the support of the parents to say, okay, here's what we're going to do when, as you say, the cyberbullying starts or the haters start. And then if they don't have parents that are supportive, or maybe they're working all the time, or maybe they've only got one parent and just life is presenting them with a lack of kind of leadership in the house, then that's when I would talk to a school counselor or a therapist. I think therapy is what I would say. Well, have them all go see you, Haley.
Yeah.
Actually, have them all see.
Perfect.
But
Perfect.
I think we all need, I don't know that this is a question about kids. I would say that for
Yeah.
social media, get really clear on what your goals are so that if you decide, okay, I've got this bullying thing is happening, you get clear with your parents on what to do. And then obviously you go to the school and try to take care of that. Or if that becomes a police issue, then that becomes a police issue.
Mhm.
But I mean, you want to start with the parents. And if they're not getting a lot of support, they have to reach out to either their friends' parents or someone at the school. I recommend therapy for all of it, to be quite
Yeah.
honest with you. And I think, I mean, my generation's a little different about therapy. Right now, everybody is kind of on board, which is lovely. And I think that I wouldn't mind having therapy for managing social media.
Yeah.
It's just this animal that nobody has taught us how to deal with. And now you've got the communication with young people whose brains aren't developed and are being affected by what other people are
Mhm.
saying. And they're saying that it's necessary for recruiting and staying connected to their friends. So I would recommend mental help for those kind of things. I mean, and when I'm talking to clients about this, I don't dive deep into these kind of things. It's really
Right.
clear about what your goal is with social media. But I would say parents and therapists right away, because you're not taught how to handle this kind of stuff. There's no book on that. I think parenting's hard enough. Now, when you're dealing with this social media beast that is necessary and evil, what do? We get somebody that's neutral and above board that can help us facilitate through it.
Yeah. And I like how you're saying there was a point in there when you said it is can be a demon and it can also help. Like it's not like it shouldn't be a black or white in a like situation. It can be like we can embrace kind of like that gray area in between. And what it sounds like you're saying too is kind of helping these athletes or clients like kind of have a game plan for when that might happen. Like, okay, these are kind of the signs, being able to bring awareness to them, seeking support if needed, but also equipping the parents or equipping the support system as well with the tools of like, okay, this is not, we need to make sure, it's not getting to the client, it's not getting to the athlete because these are people that, they're not necessarily significant in this person's life. But given the age, given the developmental stage, it can land differently on that said person differently than maybe it would like an older athlete or one that's more seasoned or more professional and is able to kind of separate the comments from reality in a
Right.
sense.
Because I mean, you need to game plan's a perfect word. You've got someone young that's starting to hit their stride in
Mhm.
sports. And there's demands, and you know how sports is, people all around are kind of, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're a hero, you're a hero. And they start to believe it because that's makes sense as well. And this is not a knock on anybody, but this is what happens. And so you're getting recruited, you're getting a lot of likes on your social media. And as you know, the brain is naturally turned on by likes and shares and those kind of things. And so, and also just know that when this starts, there's going to be people that are jealous and they may be your best friends. There's going to be people, because it's an open platform, that are going to say mean things that might hurt your feelings or might not have anything to do with you, but they do that anyway. So it's almost about, let's put all the cards on the table and then play it one by one.
Right. Hey athletes, it's Haley Herdman, host of Mental Training Room. Also, mental performance coach and mental health therapist. If you're listening to this, I know you're putting the work into your physical game. But what are you doing for your mental game? That's where I come in. I work with athletes, teams, and parents to build confidence, handle pressure, and develop the mindset it takes to perform at your best and be considered mentally elite. Whether it's through one-on-one coaching, team sessions, or parent workshops, I'm here to help you train the mind like you train your body. Want to work together? Reach out on Instagram at mtr.pod or visit haleyherdman.com to get started. Okay, kind of switching topics. So you mentioned earlier that a lot of athletes or just clients in general that you work with kind of have this nervousness about showing up in the media. And one of your key values of the coaching business that you own is helping these clients, these athletes in this case, show up confidently. So what do you think are some of the biggest like mindset shifts that athletes need to make when facing these interviews or public attention?
Great question. A couple of the things to think about is it's okay to be nervous. So when you talk about mind shifts in your brain, Haley, what I tell all my clients, and I mean, we're talking about professional athletes, managers, coaches, and CEOs of companies who are nervous. And there are some that are specifically nervous on camera. Maybe they've had a lot of success, but now they're being interviewed and people are catching on to them, and it's a whole different ballgame. The camera is this weird thing. It doesn't make sense to people because it's this box that you're looking at and you're trying to come across as natural, and it makes people nervous. One of the things to think about is change that narrative in your head that it's a bad thing to be nervous when it's actually a good thing to be nervous.
Mhm.
And from being an athlete, I mean, I know that when I covered professional athletes, there were guys that were getting sick before the game or at halftime because of their nerves. And that on the biggest stage, you're going to be nervous. And so when it comes to being on camera and talking to the media, one of the first things I say is, okay, it's okay to be nervous. That means you care. That means you care and something's at stake. Change the narrative in your head from it being negative or pejorative to positive. Okay, I know I'm going to be nervous. Now here's how I have to fight through that. And then there's ways to do that, which is preparation, breathing, exercises, going like this with your mouth, whatever that is. Sometimes it's just reps. But the first and foremost is acknowledge that nerves are a good thing. It means you care.
I love it. And that is a classic example of reframing. And I am a huge proponent of reframing. That's something that is like the basis of the work that I do. Because you're right. It's not just because we're feeling nervous, just because we're having anxiety, just because we're stressed, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That's kind of what our brain is telling us like, okay, we're in some sort of danger. But what we have to do is kind of like catch those thoughts, check it, and then choose the next thought that we want to follow because we're the ones that have to remind ourselves like, okay, yes, there's a camera there, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Yes, I'm feeling some tension in my shoulders and my chest, but it's not a bad thing. So really using that self-talk, it sounds like you encourage your clients to use. I love that.
Yes. Yeah, that's the first and foremost. And then we go through how, each person has their own challenges with nerves. So how can
Yes.
we change it so that you're less nervous?
Yeah. I
But
love
it's a real thing, and I mean, speaking of fight or flight, think about it. I
Mhm.
mean, you were interviewed. Think about for people that are just getting started, they just had this great game, for example, and then there's a physicality of somebody coming over, maybe 4 people, 5 people coming over and sticking something physical like a microphone in their face, and they're asking questions. So there's a physicality thing that is not natural and very nervous and very can put people defensive right away. So it takes a while to get used to. For all your listeners, give yourself some grace. It takes a
Mhm.
while to get used to the fact that there's lights here and there's this camera and you're supposed to be cool and there's somebody putting a microphone in your face and asking questions and maybe there's 2 other people doing that and maybe they're crowding you because there's not a lot of space. So there's a lot of elements of the physical part
Yeah.
that can make people uncomfortable, even maybe when they're not super nervous, that can make them nervous. And it's all very natural to be nervous because it's not a natural process.
Right. And it's again going back to the first thing you said of like accepting that natural process of the
Mhm,
nerves. Because when the nerves get worse is when we're kind of like restricting them or we're telling ourselves, no, I can't feel this way. I can't feel this way,
mhm,
which actually makes us more nervous, more stressed, more tense. So
mhm.
accepting it and being able to kind of work through it and not let it define your presence in that moment, if that makes sense.
Is that what you tell your clients when they've got anxiety and stuff?
Yeah, yeah. A big thing that is kind of coming to mind right now when you're telling me this stuff is, and I don't know if you've heard this before, but I feel like it could help the athletes or your clients as well, is the mindfulness exercise that's called leaves on a stream. And it's like you're kind of just picturing your thoughts or the feelings that you're having as a leaves on a stream, like it's going downstream and you're not like the way that I visualize it with clients is like instead of like picturing your brain as like a spider web where all the thoughts are like getting stuck, like the nerves are getting stuck, the stress getting stuck, we're picturing them as leaves on a stream and they're just coming in like one side of your brain and leaving the other side of your brain as leaves on a stream. And sometimes like I'll lead them through an imagery exercise with that in mind and then ask them to actually like label the thoughts and feelings that like are each leaf on a stream. And it's kind of cool to see like, oh yeah, that's it. It makes them feel like a lot more relaxed. And it's like I'm not trying to like hold on to these things and it's
Mhm.
just accepting it as it comes.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. I'm
So
gonna
that's
use
kind
it.
of
I'm gonna
yeah.
use it.
I'll send you a little bit more about it. But
Okay.
yeah, that's like a basic synopsis of it. I'm curious too, because you mentioned like the post-game interviews. Is
Mhm.
that something that you specifically would go over with your clients of like how, because also I always see these interviews and I don't know what your thoughts would be on her, but my favorite athlete is Kelsey Plum. And I know her interviews are always kind of like unhinged in a way, but I love it because she's being very real
Mhm.
especially after the game when it's like you're so fatigued, your mind is so tired, everything's going on. And there was one interview that she did where the Holly was like Holly Rowe. Is that her
Mhm.
name? Yeah. She was like, "What do you guys need to work on better next time or something?" And Kelsey was like, "We just need to play better fucking defense." My God, like, okay, true, but it's like this girl maybe doesn't have a media coach. I don't know. But what are if you do work with athletes, like talking about those post-game interviews, what are some things that you kind of like share with them for those moments?
Well, it kind of goes back with what we were talking about before, which is laying out the plan. Now,
Mm,
here's the deal. You know that after a game, you're going to be emotional. You're going to, there's going to be different emotions. There's going to be devastation, heartbreak, confidence, happiness, cockiness. It runs the gamut, as we know. And you are going to be coming off an interview right after that. So let's set out the whole game plan. Remember, number one, first and foremost, repetitions are your best friend.
mhm,
You live and you learn, especially in television. It's just practice, practice, practice. And think about how you want to come across. Remember, that someone's going to come get you when you're very emotional. So how can you work through that? What are steps you can take? And that could be taking a deep breath. It can be looking at the ground and putting your feet on the ground and taking a deep breath and realizing, okay, this is what I want to get across. You need to take a beat and get ready for it. And so the preparation is just know that you could be super excited or you could be super mad. You might cuss, et cetera, et cetera. Is that how you want to come across? Do you care? And it's
right.
really about what they want or maybe what their coach or their manager is saying. And then we backtrack from there. It's just a little more challenging because you're dealing with emotions. But one of the things that I do all the time with all of my clients is it's recording and playing it back and showing them
Mm,
how they're coming across. Because you'll find people that say, I don't think I was that bad. It was fine. And then I show them on camera and I
yeah,
say, is that fine? If that's okay with you, then I'm okay with that. But let me tell you what I'm seeing here. Or, especially young athletes who don't care about the filler words
right.
and the ums or you likes and then I'll show them a recording and I'll say, okay, how is that coming across? Because I just counted 17 of them. Are you okay with that? After a while, I mean, it's really their journey. And so what I can do is I can tell them what I've observed. I can tell them what the options are and the outcomes would be if they did this, and then they can take it from there. Especially sometimes younger athletes, Haley, and I don't know if you have this challenge, but sometimes they just don't care because they're hitting the three all the time, or
Right.
they're home runs, or they're scoring goals. And
Yeah.
so it's really important for me, especially when I've got athletes that come to me that say, one of the reasons I love working with athletes is because they'll say, I need a coach, and I've had a hitting coach. I've had a mental health coach. I've had a strength and conditioning coach. Now I need a coach to help me better with interviews and how to present. And then I'm like, okay, we're good now. But getting to the ones that maybe don't need it or they think they're okay, that's kind of a fool's errand and they kind of have to learn on their own.
Yeah. It is I think a lot of it goes back to the awareness too of, like you said, watching yourself back,
Yeah.
knowing that maybe there's a better word to use in that situation, or even knowing creating that connection with yourself of, okay, after a game, I'm tired, and maybe that's why the thoughts aren't coming to me as easy as it would pregame or whatever it might be.
Right. And saying that. And I think, the thing about Kelsey Plum is that she's got it going on. I mean, she knows who she is and she knows what she's doing. And I think one of the best, not I think I know, but one of the best things to say is, it's such a great question, but we just played 18 innings and all I want to do is go have some water and go to bed and then fight through it. And what that does is that connects with the audience because it's authentic and the audience probably just watched the game and they're probably thinking the same thing. So the more human you are by saying, I'm sorry, I just said that bad word. I know I'm just excited because we haven't beaten the Dodgers in 20 years. Those kind of things
Yeah.
I encourage my clients to do because number one, life is live, period.
Yeah.
No one's perfect. And when you're speaking emotionally, things are going to happen. You can recover immediately. You can recover immediately by apologizing right away, saying, oops, or making a joke out of it. That is something that you can do, especially when you slip.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's such a great point. And I think as as the audience as well, I always do find myself going back to those post game interviews or whatever it might be of like when they are being very human. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I love watching this. That's a really great point. I love that you brought that up.
This episode is sponsored by Defend USA, performance and recovery apparel designed for athletes who know that the mental and physical recovery go hand in hand. Defend's graduated compression technology enhances performance by improving circulation, reducing muscle fatigue, and increasing endurance during workouts. Designed for athletes of all levels, it also supports faster recovery by minimizing soreness and promoting better post-training blood flow. Just like we train the mind, we have to take care of the body. And Defend helps you do both. Check them out at dfndusa.com and use code MTR10 for 10% off. Train hard, recover smarter, perform stronger with Defend USA.
Okay, so Katy, you run a virtual group coaching program called the Impactful Speaker. Can you share kind of like what inspired that and what your clients can kind of expect from joining that group?
Yes. And I love that you use the word inspire. So I have a presentation and media training company, which means that I'm coaching and training executives, Haley, and sports leaders, athletes, etc., like we talked about. And I started this virtual group coaching program called the Impactful Speaker and created a program so that executives could get really clear on their why and deliver it with confidence, and really clear on their elevator pitch and deliver it with confidence. Because I started working with groups and corporations that still weren't really clear with what their company does or what they do and how they're leading the market. It's getting back to the basics. And when you know what your purpose is and your why and what you do so that other people can understand it, you're really grounded. They're two very fundamental keys to communicating with confidence. There are people out there that prefer the group environment. And I love it because I get these really smart people in there and we're recording and we're giving each other feedback. And I essentially, if my group is giving each other feedback that is solid, I stay out of it and I simply facilitate. And that's what I love because the added bonus is, number one, they're all smart. And for whatever reason, they don't believe it or they're working on these other things. And then if they've got growth, like-minded business leaders and athletes in their group that is giving them feedback, or I went through this and this is what I do to get better, they're really going to listen to that. And then they're building a network. So for example, my last group, it's an 8-week program. The day after, we all went to an event together and none of us had met, and especially in person, but we got along so well that we all wanted to get together in person because you're building that camaraderie and people are vulnerable together and learning together. So that's why I started it and I love it. And I mean, in 8 weeks, they are more confident and they're better presenters.
That's so cool. I too love the group environment so much. Like I myself, as a clinician, feel so much more energized after groups because you get to see, and especially when it's teams, like for me, if I'm working with a sports team, to be able to give them that platform where these athletes, like, yes, they spend 24/7 together, but sometimes they're not being vulnerable with each other.
Right.
So to create that space, like you said, and just kind of watch it all play out it's very energizing for me. And I love that you recognize that as well.
Yeah. And I love listening to smart people. I mean, these are skill sets that you and I both teach. And so they've excelled in all these other areas of their lives. And how can we make them a little bit better at presenters?
Exactly.
A little bit better speakers, and whether they're presenting on camera or not, it's awesome.
Exactly. And last thing that I just want to touch on is it's so important, like you said, to connect with your why. And that's something I always encourage athletes to do as well. Maybe when you're facing burnout or maybe a lack of motivation is, why are you doing this? What is that spark that's within you? And I think in terms of like the brand building that we were talking about, my mom is in marketing, as you know, ad sales, but she went to some seminar or like something like that. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but they were talking about how Nike is probably going to, or no, they are going to rebrand from Just Do It to Why Do It. And I was talking to my mom, I was like, this is a huge like mental like training awareness for them to do that, because it is just do it. And sometimes can be like, okay, that can be a little bit not acknowledging, things that are going on for us internally, but with the why do it, it's like, why are we doing this? Creating that awareness, connecting with ourselves. And yeah, so that was like a little point I wanted to make, but I love that that is a huge part of that group that you do.
Love it.
So
You're right
very,
on. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything you did with us today, Katie. I learned a lot, and I hope that parents and athletes listening to this will also learn a lot and realize that they got to get themselves a media coach.
Let's go. I'm here. I'm ready.
I love it. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
That's it for today in the mental training room.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at mtr.pod to stay up to date with all things mental training.